All right, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday. It is the Earthmaster here on this end, April 3rd, 2024, 11:22 a.m. California time here. We're getting very close to the eclipse date. We'll check that out here in a little bit as far as the cloud cover forecast goes. Latest activity shows a 4.1 up here off the coast of Japan. One of the latest quakes coming in to the area. Now, of course, we still got quite a bit of aftershock activity occurring around the Taiwan area. Look at that, stacking up with earthquakes. But for a 7-pointer, 7.4, the strongest earthquake in 25 years here across the Taiwan area, that's a decent amount of aftershock activity that's coming in and is expected. I'm not seeing anything here in the map that would tell me that we could see something larger than the main quake they seen yesterday, which was a 7.4. So far, the aftershock activity has been mainly in the 4, 5, and 3 range. We did see one 6.4 immediately following the 7.4 yesterday. So most of the activity, again, has been confined to aftershock activity. And I really don't think we're going to see anything bigger out here. Migration-wise, it's limited here to this region. I'm really not seeing any major migration here across the subduction zone area that would lead me to believe that things are getting... could see a bigger quake, but there is a little migration here across to the west of Taiwan, or just on the western side of Taiwan. Here in the, actually, this was 4.2. That was from yesterday, so that's this earthquake happened prior to this movement here, I believe. So really no migration at all from this activity. If we look on the earthquake 3D globe, really haven't noticed any unusual activity north or south here of the region, just contributing to aftershock sequences here around the Taiwan area, just limited to that region. 4.1 up here in Japan. It does look like it's into the Japan Trench area. That's about the only newer activity that I'm noticing here today so far. Yesterday, we did see a handful of earthquakes following this event down south here. But that just tells me that there's general regional stress out here against the Filipino plate, and that's all due to, we had a 6-pointer out here a day or so ago that really added the strain out here against the western areas of the Filipino plate, which is right here. So I expect aftershock continue to at least maybe might be able to see a larger aftershock, but most of the aftershocks right now in the 5 and 4 range. But again, there's always that concern of seeing maybe a decent size aftershock. It goes away after time. I think if we don't see any large aftershocks today, then we can pretty much assume that this is just going to continue to dwindle down in terms of the multitude and the magnitudes there. But we'll keep an eye on it today, see if we don't get anything larger in the 6 range for aftershocks. This is the Taiwan earthquake map here. It looks like there's a little bit of activity in the background, some smaller quakes I'm sure kicking up. USGS showing about 36 earthquakes here. That's, a decent amount, but most of these have been in the 4 and 5 range, mainly 4, some low-grade 5s, but that's very common with a large earthquake like that. Again, that was a 7.4 earthquake, the strongest earthquake to hit Taiwan in 25 years. Now back over here, just a little bit closer to the subduction zone, they can see some 8-pointers out here. It's been about 100 years or so since we've seen any movement out here in terms of 8.0 magnitude earthquakes. But I don't see anything stirring up out here right now. No migration of the quakes. It's limited to the specific area where the fracture has occurred there off the eastern coast of Taiwan. So that did stir up a little bit of tsunami activity out there. Let's check out the tsunami wave heights, which were observed. I think the largest we've seen there was across the this area of Taiwan, with a maximum observed tsunami height of 3.3 feet. That's 1 meter. So originally they were calling for tsunami heights between 1 and 3 meters. So we got the lower side of that, which is good. Definitely a lot better than seeing 10-foot tsunami height or higher. But everything's canceled now. That was canceled last night. Again, earthquake activity continuing. Do have another earthquake coming in right now, looks like here, 4.2. Let me check the EMSC model and see what we got here for their earthquake reporting. Zoom over here real quick. I'm sure they may show a little bit more earthquake activity than what the USGS is showing. It looks about the same out here. Maybe a handful of smaller quakes in this area, but again, that's going to be expected here, folks. Definitely expected. Expect aftershocks to continue, and there's always a little chance of seeing a decent size aftershock in this mix. This earthquake here, back around the Mariana Trench from yesterday, that was a 5.2. Over the past week, of course, we did see some larger scale movement out here with that 6-pointer coming in yesterday early in the morning. That was about 2 o'clock my time yesterday morning for Tuesday. And again, that 6-pointer created a whole bunch of strain over here where we've seen that larger event. There was probably already a lot of strain in this area built up in 25 years or so. And all it took, I think, was a little bit more pressure, a little bit migration of pressure in this region, and that's what kicked off this 7-pointer yesterday. The general plate dynamics out here tells us, here with the GPS arrows, shows the general direction of the plate movement, and you expect plate movement to increase strain, right? So over the past couple days, strain has been quite high across the Filipino plate, which is right here in the reddish color, almost like a pink salmon color. When we seen that 6-pointer kicked up there across the Mariana Trench area, that added further strain out here against the Taiwan area where we've seen that 7-pointer. This whole area is reinforced by many large plates. You see the arrows pointing down to the southeast, and you got this heading off to the northwest. So definitely expected. It's been a little while since we've seen large-scale movement out here. But the only other concern here is that maybe there's some potential out here across this region for some larger scale activity. There was one little quake a couple days ago, 4.6 out there. But we'll continue to watch it, see how things develop out here today. As far as newer activity out here in the last 24 hours, mostly limited to the Maluku Sea area, Indonesia Islands region. Seen some 2s and 3s out here in the white circles, indicating some recent activity. Some of those look pretty deep as well into this area. Getting some newer movement here across the Vanuatu area. That's going to be this region right here, with a pair of deep earthquakes, 5.1 and a 4.5 earlier this morning, just north of Port Vila. Far as the New Zealand area goes, looks like they're seeing another deep earthquake underneath the North Island area, 3.0 coming in. Continue to keep an eye on that. We're definitely getting quite a bit of adjustment down there recently. As far as the west coast or the eastern areas of the Pacific Plate and adjacent plates here, up against the Peru-Chile Trench, a handful of earthquakes here across the Chile area. Some from yesterday. Most recent one, though, is a 5.2 into the Peru-Chile Trench here, about 36 kilometers deep. Further up here, it looks like most of this movement here from yesterday. One earthquake out around the Dominican Republic from today. That's going to be a 2.9. Far as the states go, we got any major changes going on out here since all the activity yesterday? It doesn't look like it. California, let's see what we got here. Little microquake activity off the Imperial Fault south of the border. Very small earthquake activity, 2s and some 1s. San Andreas Fault looks like it's sleeping for now. That's probably a good idea. General microquake activity, it looks like here along the west coast. If we pull up the 2.5 map and above, we did have, looks like a couple smaller earthquakes here, mostly around the geysers, which is not accurately correct. There's not geysers out here. That's just a name for it out here in the hydrothermal field of Northern California. It's a Clear Lake volcanic field where many facilities out here utilize the area below, the heated areas below, to create energy. There's a whole process involved in that. It's pretty neat. But also at the same time, you get earthquakes occurring out there. So that's very common. This is not anything new. In fact, if you look at the last 30 days of activity, this is just the Clear Lake area, Clear Lake volcanic field, almost 2,000 earthquakes. And that you can go back many years here since they developed this those hydrothermal plants there, that it's consistent. And sometimes we can see even more than that. So very common out here to see this many earthquakes, nothing of concern. It's just part of the process of creating some energy out there. One lonesome earthquake up here at the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Watching that. Like I say, we haven't really seen any tremor activity out here recently in terms of large-scale movement. The tremor is not volcanic, but happening down there into the deeper areas of the Cascadia subduction zone, which sits offshore Vancouver Island Range, all the way into Northern California here, just offshore. That is a major area producing megaquakes. Last megaquake out here was at least a 9-pointer back in 1700. So 324 years of built-up strain. And the tremor has been acting funny here recently since about the end of 2022. We've only seen a handful of tremor events, and they continue to dwindle down. What that means here is that things are pretty locked out here across the area. We really haven't seen any slow slip events, and that's basically a slow slip type of earthquake. I don't like to use the term earthquake because earthquakes are a sudden release of pressure. Tremor, slow slip, is a form of slow vibrational movement across the plates here. And we just really haven't seen it here in the last 2 years. It's been a little odd compared to the previous years out here. All right, looking out here further into the Washington area, getting a handful of earthquakes out here around the Centralia area. Most of this from yesterday. It looks like we had a couple smaller quakes there after midnight. Just a little bit of movement out there at the surface areas of Washington. Actually, these look somewhat deep here, 23 kilometers underneath the area. Some movement around the Mount St. Helens area once again. Mostly smaller microquake activity. Yellowstone National Park over here. Looks like there's a handful of smaller quakes in the last 24 hours. Nothing big, but I do want to show you guys the signature here from yesterday of that 7.4 earthquake. Can you guys spot it? This is the overview here of Yellowstone National Park. Now, if you look at these graphs every day like I do, you're going to see this big, huge signature of an earthquake, followed by S waves. Look at the primary wave right here being recorded thousands of miles away here in Wyoming from that 7.4 that hit yesterday in Taiwan. Those S waves travel around the globe sometimes multiple times. And that's what we're seeing right here on those very wavy lines on the graph. Most of these seismograph stations here picked it up pretty nicely. Some of these are not properly tuned or maybe just tuned locally. But some of these, like Soda Butte up here, it looks like the data is just completely squashed, that it won't pick up anything. Even if a asteroid were to hit this area, it probably wouldn't even show up on that graph. But it definitely did on most of the correct functioning seismograph stations up there. As far as local activity, yeah, I'm seeing a handful of earthquakes here across the Madison River area. That's going to be these little spikes right here. This here is some other event. Doesn't look like it's earthquake related. That earthquake activity also shown up here on the nearby seismograph station. And it looks like USGS reporting some of them, but there's a handful more that needs to be reported out there. All right, what else we got here in terms of any major movement going on? A lot of activity from yesterday. Looks like all this activity has not had any effect whatsoever on the Big Island out here in the middle of the Pacific. Don't see any major earthquake activity, no major swarms going on. Things are just kind of taking a little back seat there across that area as far as volcanic activity goes. Up into the Alaska area, roughly about the same. This is very typical movement here across the Alaska region. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. Iceland, let's go see what's going on up there in the Iceland area. Livefromiceland.is is the website to see the ongoing eruption up there. Looks like there's still at least one fountaining vent here. Still quite active. Let's see what we got here from this other webcam. Yeah, there's one at least. There should be, yep, there's the second one. And I'm assuming the third one is probably still in operation as well. A little bit of obscurity going on here with this webcam. But it looks like the Iceland eruption is still continuing now for over 2 weeks. Just a long duration event going on here across Iceland area. They did put out an update yesterday stating that there hasn't been any land rise, any inflation going on here across this area. So that tells me right there, there's still just free flow of activity up to the surface from the deeper areas below. That will continue for as long as there's supply below, right? Makes sense. So really no buildup, no strain around this area, just continued activity. Earthquake activity, a handful of earthquakes away from the Grindavik area, more so across these other rift zones, but specifically around Grindavik and the area of ongoing activity. Looks pretty quiet out there for now. Space weather, aside from the ongoing eruption, right? Space weather activity, goodness, we are way down into the boring class here. Well, that's the B class. Not necessarily stands for boring, but I tend to use that because things are not looking active at all on the sun right now. In fact, the past 3 days or so have been very quiet. Very quiet. This almost looks like a solar minimum going on. We do not have any sun spots out here that are facing the Earth. We're watching a region way out there on the eastern limb. Let me show you guys this. We talked about this last night. Barely got a glancing view of it from that update, but see what today's update brings. There's a sunspot coming around. Looks pretty large. Looks a little complex and dynamic out there. Nothing like what we had seen from 3615 over the past couple weeks, which is now way out on the western limb here. Maybe that'll come back around the bend here in a couple weeks or so. But for now, we're left with at least one spot to watch. It doesn't look like it's named yet, but it will be named here soon, and we'll just continue to watch it. But I really don't expect too much from that one yet. If it continues to grow, maybe, hopefully. 50% chance for a C flare. Look at this, very minimal conditions out here. M flare is at 15, not for sure why, but it is. But it probably should be about 1% or less for the M and X flare. No major auroras in the forecast. There is potential here of seeing a little bit of geomagnetic storming at the 18 to 24 UTC time of April 4th. Right now, UTC time is going to be April 3rd, so we're looking at maybe tomorrow night, we could see things stir up around the G1 class category for solar storms. So that might mean a little bit of auroras in the forecast, but really not expecting much here. Current aurora forecast, very minimal. All right, Storm Prediction Center out here for severe weather. A lot quieter out here today compared to days past. Most of the severe weather confined to the East Coast and portions of Florida out here. We do have a 5% chance for tornado probability out here in these zones, so heads up. Also some wind, not quite the hail damage out there, but some tornado activity and maybe some wind damage from some of these storms popping up. All right, a lot of people keep asking me, a lot of people keep wondering, I myself am wondering what's going on here with the cloud cover percentage. Come Monday, April 8th, we're getting much closer. The hours are counting down. We're literally about 126 hours out. And here's the latest model from the GFS model from the Pivotal Weather site. There's many other sites you can use, but I find this one fairly accurate. Right now, we're looking at, as it has been, folks, the past few days we've been doing these updates, the models have shown consistency with cloud cover activity across almost the entire, well, in this case, the entire area of Texas in the totality line. That includes Arkansas as well. Still showing a little bit of openness around Illinois, Indiana, and into Ohio. Maybe a little bit up into New York State and Maine. But the models have been consistent that cloud cover is going to be an issue across the viewing areas down south here, across the southern portion of this totality line. Now, if we look at the Canadian model, that's going to be the GDPS, Environment Canada's Global Deterministic Model. Determining weather, right? Determining whether I want to drive out here and cover this event or not. So this is the Canadian model. And as you can see, they're in agreement with some cloud cover as well, but a little bit in terms of the thickness of the clouds. But it still looks like a good portion here of Texas is going to be covered by cloud cover. There is a lot of moisture that's going to be coming in here into this area off of the Gulf of Mexico around that time frame, which is going to stir up some storms. So it's like it's a chance whether you take it or not. You go out there. There could be a lot of morning cloud cover, which would inhibit the viewing of the solar eclipse later in the afternoon. I just don't see it prime in terms of viewing it from that location. Maybe a little bit further up north into, well, it's hard to say, because we got this low pressure system coming through the day before on Sunday, going to bring quite a bit of weather with it. And right about the time of the eclipse right here, we're not seeing a whole lot of thunderstorm activity, but the cloud cover is going to be there. And if you look later in the day, we get those storms popping up here. This is around 6 p.m. Tuesday. It says Tuesday, but that's going to be 6 p.m. on Monday. This is UTC time, Monday the 8th. But the eclipse time is roughly going to be between the 12Z and the 18Z time frame. And it shows some of that moisture firing up storms. But in general, there's going to be a lot of cloud cover out here. If you look at the other windy model here, this one will show, I can use the ECM WF model on this one. So if we go over here and check out clouds for April 8th, right now it's clear out there in Texas, right? Looks good. But if you go over here to Monday, April 8th, 11 a.m. California time, because that's going to put it at 1 p.m. Central time here for when the eclipse is taking place. Look at that. There's all that moisture coming in, obscuring the sun here across San Antonio and other areas that were in the totality line. And these clouds are a lot of low to mid-level moisture. If you look at the low clouds right here, it shows those. Cloud base. Now, these other clouds that you see are high, thin cirrus clouds way up there in the atmosphere. But depending on, how thick are they going to be? It's a ways up there, and sometimes you can view the sun through the cirrus clouds, but in general, it shows still a lot of cloud cover out here. The thickest part going to be down here south. So, I don't know. It's a chance that one would have to take. We're not 100% set in stone yet. Today's Wednesday. I'm thinking on Friday we'll have a more 100% accuracy model in terms of what to expect Monday for the eclipse. But right now, things are still staying pretty consistent with a lot of cloud cover. Here's the GFS model for that same time frame. EMSC model. These guys are showing a little bit more high clouds. These guys are just showing the general cloud cover out here, with at least 80%. So if you got a massive amount of cirrus clouds way up there, it's still going to ruin the potential of seeing any stars, seeing the corona around the sun, seeing any comet in the sky. It doesn't look optimal here. But we'll continue to check back on that, folks, and then narrow down maybe a specific area that could be prime for viewing the eclipse. But right now, it just doesn't look good, unfortunately. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here. I do have, I got quite a bit of stuff I got to do today. Just reminded myself. And we'll be back here a little bit later on. Unless something major happens, expect aftershock activity. But I think we can limit the potential here of seeing anything bigger. These aftershocks are not something I would look at and say, wow, yeah, there's something bigger coming. These are all very typical for a 7.4 earthquake. Now, if these were a bunch of 6s coming in here, then I would definitely be a little bit more concerned. But I think the shaking will eventually go down, and these multitude of quakes here will go down as well. But for now, expect some aftershocks going on there. All right, guys, have a good day. Make sure you guys subscribe while you're here. Please click that notification bell so you can get notified when we go live and provide important updates out here on the channel. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening. Take care and enjoy your Wednesday.